So I just rolled credits on Resident Evil 9 Requiem, and without even any remote thought whatsoever, this is already in contender for top 3 Resident Evil games of the entire franchise. I want to give a huge thank you to Capcom for providing me with a review copy. I'm just going to get a couple quick things out of the way. They had a lot of stipulations, like they don't want this video to be more than 10 minutes. I can't show specific parts of the story, specific B-roll. This is going to be very, very spoiler free. I would love to dip into some of the really, really great stuff later, because trust me, there is a ton of really good stuff in here. But again, I think this is an experience that needs to be done firsthand. Trust me, this game rocks. So let's go ahead and jump into one of what I think is usually in most cases the weakest aspect of a Resident Evil game, and that's the story. Now, right off the bat, Resident Evil 9 Requiem has one of the most engaging stories in, I think, any of the Resident Evil games, full stop. You play as two main protagonists, Grace Ashcroft and Leon S. Kennedy, the GOAT himself. You're going to play as each of these individually. Their paths are going to align. I'm going to keep this section pretty light because Capcom themselves really haven't put out like too terribly much at all. I just know the last trailer they did showcase that Leon S. Kennedy does go back to the RPD. I think that's ridiculously exciting. Just guys, this video game story is so engaging. I think the voice acting is top notch. The motion capture is top notch. And as somebody bringing a brand new protagonist into this well-established universe, Grace Ashcroft is one of my favorite additions to the entire franchise. I thought her voice actress did phenomenal. I thought just the dialogue was great. She really, really did an excellent job because she is an FBI agent, but she's terrified dealing with these ridiculous scenarios. But just like she does such a good balance of being terrified, but going forward anyways. It's really genuinely true bravery because she is terrified in so many of these moments, but she's like, I have to keep going. And I just thought she did an excellent job. Leon S. Kennedy, absolutely no need to explain here. Dude is the complete king. But what I want to get into is the gameplay and the actual structure here. Now, I'm sure most people know this already, but this game can be played in two different perspectives, first person and third person. But the primary way Capcom intended it was for you to play as first person in Grace's perspective and third person in Leon's. That's exactly what I did. And I'm gonna be honest, I tried both sections. You can mix and match in any way you want. I think this is the preferred method because the way the game is structured is at the beginning, you're basically going to be playing as maybe an hour of Grace. You'll go to Leon, maybe do an hour of him, kind of back and forth. But I do say the first half of this video game, I was like, oh, there's not a whole lot of Leon here. I will say it's a heavy focus on Grace, but the back half of this video game is a hefty focus on Leon. But again, you do play as both of them throughout, but the sections are longer for Grace in the first half and longer for Leon in the second. But I'm somebody who really enjoyed Resident Evil 7, and they basically said Grace's gameplay was supposed to play like this, except in my opinion, I recently replayed 7 and I was like, I still like this, but there's a lot of sluggishness. I think 9 just perfects the formula. I think the gunplay looks and feels great. Even something simple like adding the additional like shoving the zombies is a really great way to just like utilize the combat system. They've also got this new addition where when you kill these enemies, they drop their blood and you basically get to suck up the blood, put it in this vial, and that's how your crafting is utilized. And you have to do these little mini games to unlock the different crafting sections. And I really enjoyed this and thought it added some great elements to the gameplay. You can even craft this serum that like lets you sneak behind a zombie and it'll just freaking explode, even like some of the strongest enemies. Really enjoyed playing as Grace. In most of Grace's sections, you are not this brute force to be reckoned with. You are much more fragile. You've got much more reserved ammo. You have to pick and choose your battles, know when to run, know when to hide. You're going to face off these gigantic, larger than life boss battles that you just cannot take on whatsoever. It's really riveting. I think if you were somebody who enjoyed the Resident Evil 7, this is going to feel right at home. But in my opinion, it just feels and looks better. But one thing I think is really interesting is not every single scenario in this game works out this way, but there are two major ones where you are going to play through the entire section as Grace, and then you will then switch to Leon. And any enemies that you have not killed and any items that you have not picked up as Grace, Leon can then go and attack or pick up those items. And this is just where it gets fun, because where Grace was just reserved, she was fearful, you had to run, you were terrified to take on these enemies. When you see these boys as Leon Leon, it's just time to clean up, dude. Absolutely mop the floor with these boys, and it's so satisfying. I love that the blueprint of Leon's gameplay was Resident Evil 4, but once again, it feels better here. You've got your multiple weapon varieties, just like you would in Resident Evil 4. You, of course, have Leon's traditional roundhouse kick, but one of the things that really I thought was a great addition was the inclusion of the hatchet. This hatchet is completely permanent, but it will break once it takes enough damage, and you will have to sharpen it each time. It's really nice. But this is a great addition for stealth, for melee combat. You kind of have a light and a heavy attack. I just think this really adds for great melee combat. I'm not going to show most of the heavy boss battles, man, but there are some really, really awesome boss battles in this video game. I don't think there's quite as many as there is in Resident Evil 4, but the ones that are here are really high quality. And again, do not get me wrong, there are still a decent amount of them. I think one of the things that really impressed me in this game as well is just the level of detail, man. I mean, when you blast these enemies' faces off, you see the skin completely peel back. You see the flesh and bone. There was a section where this dude's jaw was busted off, his eyes popping out. You can see his tongue. It's disgusting. There was also a section early on with Leon that is just like one of those things that's like, it's just the small details that add up. One of the enemies had dropped a chainsaw and the other one went to go grab it, and he went and picked it up and accidentally sliced one of his arms off. And I was like, okay, like that's interesting. But then it just kept going because, as you can see here, he is completely flailing around. This dude cannot stabilize this chainsaw whatsoever. And I was just standing there in awe. I was like, what a great level of attention to detail. And you can even see this guy, he gets stuck. The other guy just blasts off with it. Like, that was just one of those sections very, very early on that I was just like, that's something that didn't need to be in here, but I'm glad it is. Now, just to give you some background of like how I feel about most of the Resident Evil games, I think Resident Evil 2 is really, really good, somewhere around like an 8 out of 10, very solid. I think 7 and 8, I really enjoyed those as well. Not as much on replay though, but I think Resident Evil 4 is, in my opinion, the best of the entire franchise. I think that is a genuine 10 out of 10. God, I freaking wish I could get into some of the excellent action set pieces, boss battles that are in the back half of this video game, because trust me, the people will be talking once the public gets their hands on this video game. I was just grinning ear to ear 95% of this time. It is one of those video games, when I wasn't playing it, I was thinking about playing it, and I just had a hard time putting this thing down. I'm going to keep this short. Capcom did request that we not make our reviews longer than 10 minutes, which is unfortunate because there is just so much good to talk about this video game. I feel like I could just glaze it all day. I think Resident Evil 9 Requiem is easily so far the best video game of 2026 and my current frontrunner for game of the year. I think this is on par with Resident Evil 4. I think this is one of the best in the entire franchise. It has the great story, the great gameplay, the great action set pieces, the epicness of like the action set pieces of a Resident Evil 4, but the best of the best horror alongside like Resident Evil 7. It's a great balance. The Grace and Leon protagonists are both interesting. They're both great. Nothing drags this story down. I think the antagonist is awesome. Just when it comes to thinking of like what I like in a survival horror video game, and even just a great third-person action video game, Resident Evil 9 Requiem has them all. When I think of like, hey, a brand new AAA $70 title video game, this is the absolute blueprint. I played this on a base PlayStation 5 and it ran almost flawlessly. I had zero bugs, zero glitches, crashes, a steady frame rate, absolute fantastic work, Capcom. I am already itching to do a replay on this. Definitely let me know if you're planning on picking up Resident Evil 9 Requiem. I imagine most of you will be, and I promise you it is well worth it.